Okay.
Ahead of time. So. Ahead of time. Ahead of time. I'm going to start letting folks in.
Yes, sir.
Good morning.
Morning, Judge. How are you?
Well, how are you?
Doing well, doing well.
So typically with these, I'll it'll be kind of quiet for a little bit, but I'll wait a few minutes just to make sure that nobody's going to appear. I know it's a default judgment thus far, but make sure nobody's going to appear on behalf of the defendant. Then we'll get going. Do y'all want this taken down?
No, that's fine.
Well, we'll give a few minutes here and we'll get started.
You know, stranger things have happened, so I don't mind waiting a minute.
We get folks showing up from time to time on some of these cases, which is usually good. See,
Depending on who you ask, right?
it usually works out. I have 11:33. If Ms. Dennis appears, we'll address that at the time. But otherwise, Ms. Kelly, you may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. I'd just like to give a short outline of what we're going to present today. As you mentioned earlier, Your Honor, liability is not in dispute as a default judgment was entered back in April against Ms. Dennis. However, today you are going to hear from my client, Mr. Norris Smith Jr., about the events that transpired on March 16th, 2018, when he was violently rear-ended by the defendant, Latesha Dennis. We also hear about how the defendant was on her cell phone before and immediately after the wreck, and how, in fact, technically she was not even supposed to be on the road that day. You'll also hear from Mr. Smith about the injuries that he sustained as a result of the wreck, and how after over 4 years later, he's still dealing with those injuries, as well as pain and suffering from that day. You'll also hear from Miss Gail Gibson, who will testify that she's been a family friend for over 30 years and the sharp difference that she noticed in Mr. Smith since this wreck. Now, at the end, my client will ask you for recovery in amount no less than $25,000 for the damages that he incurred from the defendant's breach of duty. And with that, Your Honor, I would like to enter into evidence as Plaintiff's Exhibit 1, the default judgment order that you executed back in April. And
it's already part of the record, so that's already.
yes, Your Honor.
You can, but I guess it's admitted, but it's part of the record and I have it here.
Okay, and will I have the ability to share my screen?
I can. You're not gonna share that order with me, are you?
No.
Okay, then I'll give you, I have that.
Okay.
All right, here we go. Yep, you may proceed.
Okay, great. All right, at this time, I'd like to call Mr. Smith.
Okay.
And Mr. Smith, can you raise your right hand for me?
Yes.
Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Okay. And can you state and spell your name for the record?
Yes, Norris, Norris, Smith, Smith, Jr.
And where do you live?
I live in Fairburn, Georgia.
Where did you grow up?
I grew up in Atlanta, Kirkwood area.
Okay. And were there any activities that you enjoyed doing as a child that carried over into adulthood?
Yes, as a child, I enjoyed all sporting activities. Regular sports as a young man, football, basketball, baseball.
Were there any activities that you continued into adulthood other than football and baseball?
Yes, my father introduced me to golf at around middle school. So I fell in love with that game. So at the present time now, that's this activity that I love, golfing.
And when you were younger, young man, how often would you golf with your dad?
We would go out once or twice a week, me, him, and my uncle.
And was that a special time for you, golfing with your dad and your uncle?
Yes, it was very special. I felt real privileged. And I was so glad he introduced me to that game.
Mr. Smith, when you were golfing with your dad and your uncle, was this just about the sport for you?
No, it wasn't. It was quality time being spent with my dad.
Okay. And Mr. Smith, do you have children?
I do.
How many children?
I have 6 kids.
How many boys and how many girls?
I have 4 young men and 2 daughters.
And did you ever introduce your children to your love of golfing?
I did introduce them to it.
And do any of your kids golf?
Yes, a couple of my sons, we played together.
And previous to this wreck, golfing with your sons, was that something special for you?
Yes, we look forward to it.
Okay. Now you mentioned that you would golf with your dad and your uncle. Are they still with us?
No, my father passed away in 2007. And my uncle, he's my only surviving uncle at the age of 90.
Wow, I'm sorry to hear about your dad.
Mhm.
You mentioned that you have children. Do you have any grandkids?
I have 8 grandkids.
And how old are they?
They range from 3 months to 17 years old.
And what do your grandkids call you?
Granddaddy and Pop.
And what type of things do you like to do with your grandkids?
Well, when I get with my grandkids, we like to go out to the barn and they love the horses.
Now you mentioned horses. Do you own a horse?
I do.
And what type of horse do you own?
I own a Tennessee walking horse.
And what's your horse's name?
His name is Cassius.
And how long have you been around horses?
I've been around horses for over 50 years.
Did you do any competitions or any shows?
Yes, I used to ride in the shows.
And is horseback riding something that you enjoyed doing?
I did enjoy it. And I still love horses.
Now, Mr. Smith, where did you go to high school?
I attended Murphy High School. It's Cream now, but it was Murphy back then.
Okay. And did you work when you were in high school?
I did. In the 11th grade, I went and worked part-time with UPS.
Okay. And how long were you with UPS?
I was there for a little over 8 years.
Did you get any awards or distinctions working for UPS?
During the years, I got a safe driving award.
And Mr. Smith, here as we sit here today, would you consider yourself a safe driver?
I do.
Okay. Now, what did you do after working for UPS?
I started my own business.
And what type of business is that?
It's a roofing, Smith Roofing.
And is that a job that you would typically do from a desk?
No, it's a labor type, more a lot of labor involved in roofing. Anybody does roofing, they know it's very strenuous.
Okay. And how many employees do you have?
11,
And do they have families?
they do.
Okay. So 11 people and their families are dependent on your business. Is that right?
That's correct.
Okay. Now, let's talk about March 16th, 2018. Do you recall that day?
Yes, I do.
And what sticks out about that day?
That particular afternoon, it was around rush hour, and I was leaving the auto repair. And the vehicle, I was going to test drive my car to make sure everything was fixed properly. So when I exited the auto shop, I drove approximately half a mile or so down to get some fuel because my gas was low and I was going to gas up. And when I was heading to gas up and turning, I had to make a left turn into the gas station. And the oncoming traffic was coming. So I had made a complete stop with my signal on to turn left. And shortly after that, I was rear-ended in the back.
Okay. Now, Mr. Smith, when you were getting ready to turn into that gas station, were you still moving?
No, I was at a complete stop.
And how long had you been at a complete stop?
Maybe 8 to 10 seconds.
Okay. Now, did you hear any tires screeching?
No, I didn't.
Did you hear any horns blaring before impact?
No,
Any indication that the defendant was getting ready to slam into the back of your car?
no, I didn't get no indication.
Okay. Now, where did you feel the impact on your vehicle?
Well, I was struck and I felt it in my neck and my back.
Okay. Did your body move as a result of the impact?
It was shifted forward.
Okay. So after the defendant slammed into the rear of your vehicle, what did you do after that?
After I realized I had been struck, I got myself together and I got out of the vehicle. And I walked to the back where the young lady was in her vehicle. And she was sitting in her car with her head face down with her phone in her hand. And she wouldn't say nothing. She didn't say anything. So I didn't say anything. I just stood outside. And shortly after that, an officer was on duty in that area, may have been a gas station, and he witnessed it. And I didn't have to dial 911. So the officer was already there.
Okay. And you mentioned that this took place. Where did this happen?
It happened in Fairburn and College Park on Roosevelt Highway.
And is that a busy roadway?
It's extremely busy in rush hour.
Okay. Now you mentioned that the officer came. Who did you cause this wreck, Mr. Smith?
No, I did not.
And do you know if the officer determined who was at fault for causing the wreck?
She was cited.
Okay, so the defendant was at fault for this wreck.
Yes.
Okay, you mentioned that upon impact, you were jerked forward. What parts of your body did you feel pain?
My neck and my back, lower back.
And when did you seek treatment for those injuries?
The following morning, I was stiff and my back and neck was hurting. So I went to seek treatment that day.
Okay, and did you seek treatment at Georgia Injury and Spine Center of Morrow?
That's where I went.
And how did you hear about them?
Well, I heard about them to a friend.
And what type of treatment did you receive at Georgia Injury and Spine Center of Morrow?
I received treatments from them for several weeks, for like 45 minutes to an hour each visit.
And what would they do at each visit?
They would try to correct, but I forgot the name they called it, a gesture or something. They would do certain things each time I go to try to help the pain.
Okay, these adjustments, was that like going to a spa?
No, it wasn't enjoyable to me. It was, it was painful.
Did you think it was necessary for the end goal of feeling better?
Yes, it was.
Okay, and Mr. Smith, have you had an opportunity to review your medical records?
I have.
Okay. And have you had an opportunity to review your medical bills?
I have.
Your Honor, at this time, I'd like to enter exhibits 2 and 3, the certified records and medical bills. And Mr. Smith, I'm going to show you your medical records. And Mr. Smith, is this your handwriting on the patient history form?
It is.
Okay, and do you see here where it says primary complaint, neck and back pain?
I do.
I'm going to scroll down a bit. What's the date next to your signature here at the bottom of this page?
It's 3/19/18.
Okay. And I'm going to scroll all the way to the very last visit. And I'm going to make this a little bit bigger for you here. Do you see this date right next to your name at the top of the screen?
Mm-hmm.
And does that say May 22nd, 2018?
It does.
I'm going to scroll down to the doctor's note. I'm going to try my best to read it. I think my mom said I should have been a doctor because my handwriting looks a lot like this. It says patient released and residual weakness. Patient is prone to future exacerbation due to this injury. Did I read that correctly?
Yes.
Okay. And I'm going to go over to your medical bills. And according to your bills, it looks like your treatment started on March 19th, 2018 and concluded on May 22nd, 2018. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, for a total of your medical expenses being $3,630.00. Is that your recollection as well?
Yes, it is.
Did the treatment help you, Mr. Smith?
Temporarily, it did.
Okay. And when you released, when you were released from treatment, did you have any more issues with your back?
For a week or so, or a couple of weeks, I thought I was fine, but the pain came back to me.
And where was the pain?
The neck and the back, lower back.
And prior to Defendant Dennis hitting you, did you ever have any issues with your neck or your back?
No, I did not.
You're going to ask the judge, are you asking the judge to award you the medical expenses in this case?
Yes.
And that amount is $3,630?
Yes.
And you're asking the judge to award you a reasonable amount for past pain and suffering, is that right?
That's right.
And are you asking the judge to award you a reasonable amount for present pain and suffering?
Yes.
And do you know how long you're going to continue to experience pain?
Probably from now on.
Okay, and are you asking the judge to award you a reasonable amount for any future pain and suffering?
Yes.
Take me through your typical day, Mr. Smith, starting from the time that you wake up. How are you physically affected from this wreck?
Well, when I wake up in the morning, I'm sleeping on my back every night. Typically, I didn't sleep on my back. But anyway, when I wake up, I have to roll over and then kind of pull myself up to the bed, get my feet on the floor, when I get there, and then once I sit a few minutes, seconds, I can push on up and get my day started. It's just a little difficult getting up out of that bed.
And why is it difficult?
Because my back, I can't even sleep on my side or my stomach. I have to sleep on my back. And I normally slept on my stomach or my side. But now on my back, I have to just roll over and do the best I can to get up out of that bed.
And how old are you, Mr. Smith?
I'm 66.
And did you imagine at 66 that you would wake up to back pain?
No, I didn't.
Okay. And does this happen every day?
It's every day when I awake.
And so is this a daily reminder of what the defendant did?
Unfortunately, it is.
Was your relationship with your children and grandchildren affected?
Yes, it's affected because I'm no longer able to do all the activities with the grandkids like I want to do or could do. I have to restrict it.
And you mentioned previously about horse riding. Do you still ride Cassius?
Well, I don't ride him. Maybe if I can ride once a month, and I have to get help getting up in the saddle. But once I'm in the saddle, I'm fine.
Did you have to get help getting up in the saddle before the defendant hit you?
Oh no, I could step on up and pull myself up.
Cassius, does he need to be exercised?
Yes, he's on a stall every day. So normally he would get ridden once or twice a week. But now I'll take him out the stall, put him in a round pen and lunge him to get his exercise, to keep him from just standing in that stall every day.
Okay. So I don't have a horse, I have chickens. But even my chickens have personalities. Does Cassius have a personality?
Absolutely, they do.
Okay. Do you think he could tell the difference with not being able to be ridden as often?
Yes, he can, because he's not getting ridden. And it's standing up, a horse will get hypered up and just, not doing him any good standing in that stall like that.
Does anybody else ride Cassius?
No, I don't let anybody ride him. It's like he's what you call a one man's horse. I don't want to spoil him to that. Other people probably give him bad habits and stuff, beginning riders or whatever.
And if Cassius began to get bad habits, is that something you'd be able to easily fix?
No,
Why not?
because it's a time thing. You have to spend time with the animal. And
I'm sorry, go ahead, Mr. Smith.
yeah, he's not getting the quality time he deserves.
And do you relate that to your injuries from this wreck?
I do.
Now, you mentioned golfing. What do you enjoy about golfing?
I love the game itself, the peace and the tranquility it gives you.
Okay. And you mentioned that you used to play with your dad and your uncle. You said your uncle is 90?
Be 91 in July.
Okay. Now with golfing, that's a lot of walking and swinging, right?
It is.
Okay. And how is your ability to golf affected by your injuries?
Well, the golf with a bag back, they don't work together. But I make it through it.
Okay. And you mentioned that golfing is kind of your go-to for tranquility and peace. Did I hear that right?
Yes.
Okay. So we were sitting here today and you were going to go golfing with your 90-year-old uncle. Do you think you'd be able to keep up?
I can keep up, but I shouldn't have to try to keep up. I'm 25 years younger than my uncle. So I'm with him, but I just make the best of it.
And does your uncle still golf at 90?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Mr. Smith, tell me how your mental health was affected from this wreck.
My what now?
Mental health.
Mentally, I went through depression for a while after the accident. I normally would be an early bird, but it was sometimes I stayed in the bed all day till after 3 o'clock, and that's not my norm. And it had to be depression.
You mentioned earlier that you're a business owner, right?
I am.
And running a business, that takes a lot of mental facilities, right? Or mental faculties, right?
Yes,
Did your business suffer from you not being able to be as present?
it did.
Would you say this wreck interfered with your normal living?
It did.
What about yard work? Who does your yard work?
I have to get a landscaper to do it.
And before this wreck, did you have to get a landscaper?
No, I took care of everything myself.
And you strike me as one of those people who take a lot of pride in their lawn. Is that right?
Yes, I do.
Okay. Did they give you any type of apparatus to wear as a result of your injuries?
Yes, I have a back brace.
And how often do you have to wear that back brace?
Well, I start out with it most of the mornings every day. Then once I get going or after lunch or whatever, I have to take it off because it's so uncomfortable.
Okay. This is something that you have to wear every day?
Yes, I do.
Before this wreck, did you ever have to wear a back brace for any reason?
No, I did not.
Okay. Now, did the injuries from your wreck interfere with your enjoyment of life?
Yes, it did.
Did you imagine at 66 that this is how you would be operating and waking up in the morning and things of that nature?
No.
After this wreck, did you experience pain and suffering?
Yes, I did.
Do you expect to continue to experience pain and suffering?
Yes, I do.
Did you experience mental anguish from this wreck?
Yes, I did.
Do you expect to continue to experience mental anguish from this wreck?
I do.
Did the injuries that you sustained from this wreck limit your activities?
Yes, it did.
Now you understand that this is the only time that you can seek recovery from the harm that defendant Dennis caused, is that right?
Yes,
Okay, and do you understand that you cannot later go back to defendant Dennis for recovery?
I do.
And you understand that Judge Taylor is going to calculate your pain and suffering however he deems appropriate.
I do.
Okay. And what amount, if any, are you asking from the judge to compensate you for the damages caused by defendant Dennis?
Well, I'm asking nothing under 25,000.
Okay. And Mr. Smith, did you cause this wreck?
No, I did not.
And is there anything you could have done to avoid this wreck?
It wasn't nothing I could do.
Okay. All right, Mr. Smith, I think that's all the questions that I have for you. Thank you. Judge, you're on mute.
I'm on mute. Thank you. I just have a couple of questions to clarify a couple of points, if I can, Mr. Smith. One is, and I saw the records briefly. I don't think they've been filed, have they, Ms. Kelly?
No, they have not, Your Honor.
Okay, so I don't have them sitting in front of me. What kind of medical provider is Georgia Injury and Spine Center?
It's a chiropractic clinic.
Okay, so that's what is chiropractic. Okay. And that was in 2018. And I'm wondering if you're in pain every day, why haven't you gone to an orthopedist or gone back to a doctor to check that out in the last 4 years now?
Well, I go annually to my doctor, my primary care.
Yes, sir.
And I've been on medications for pain in my back through my doctor, but I don't like taking pills every day like that.
Right. I'm just wondering, all right. And has your PCP never referred you to an orthopedist or anybody to go check out your back?
He did offer me to go to a special back doctor,
Yes, sir.
but this case has been going on. And then the pandemic had hit, and I was waiting on my case to come up, and I just been bearing with it. I hadn't really went to that doctor.
Okay. Well, I guess it's over now, but you don't have to wait to go see a doctor when you have a case going on. If something,
I got
you
you.
ever know folks in the future or have folks, there's no need to wait to get medical attention when you're in pain.
I
Okay.
understand, Your Honor.
And as somebody who suffered from back pain in the past for many years until surgery, there is, but I've been doing well since surgery. So I'm just letting you know. I mean, I would go see somebody about that. You don't have to be in pain forever.
Okay.
All right, I will get y'all out a judgment on your case. I'll get that out. And Mr. Smith, it was nice to hear about Cassius. I grew up with saddlebreds mostly and some Morgan horses. I didn't have any Tennessee walkers, but of course there are a lot of folks who had both saddlebreds and walkers.
I love saddlebreds too.
Yes, sir. Yep, we mostly went to the same probably showgrounds at the time, maybe some Wills Park or.
Dewey Henderson's back in the 80s.
Oh yeah, I knew Dewey Henderson.
Yeah, I knew Dewey personally. He used to have the biggest shows in the Southeast region at Henderson.
Yep. At the Henderson's auction down there south of town? Or where, didn't he have that place down there?
Yes, he has Henderson's. He sold it.
Right.
And I didn't live far from Dewey's place, right off 92. He had it's called Twin Lakes then. And
Right.
he sold Twin Lakes to Brian Jordan, former player in the NFL and the Braves. And he's made it into several $1 million homes, turned it into a subdivision.
It's a small world. I've met Brian Jordan, but watched a game with him one time, but he and I went to University of Richmond. I was a couple of years behind him. Small world, but I haven't heard the name Dewey Henderson in years, quite frankly. Glad. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. All right. Well, like I said, we'll get you judgment out, but Mr. Smith, go get that back checked on because you don't have to live like this forever. Well, you shouldn't have to.
Thank you.
And I say shouldn't. Sometimes you do. I'm no doctor, but you can at least go get it checked out, and if they can help you. I've had everything from injections to acupuncture to finally surgery, but you keep doing what you can. And fortunately, I don't encourage surgery, but for me, it worked out great.
Well, that's good. That's what I was afraid of, is surgery.
I know everybody is, and you should be. Don't get me wrong. That should be a last resort, but it worked out well for me.
Well, that's good.
Yes, sir. All right. Well, y'all take care. And like I say, we'll get that out to you to be in e-file. We'll get that out.
Thank you, Judge.